Welcome to the Quad Cities for the 2022 Tim Selinske U.S. Masters Disc Golf Championships. A PDGA major, and I am Grant Zellner of the PDGA, bringing you round number 2 in the MP40 division. These players know their way around the Camden 2 course at this point. Tightly wooded, difficult to say the least, and all the creatures ready to watch a round of disc golf, including you and I. So let's get to know our foursome for this second round. Starting things off, and with a share of the lead through one round, it's Alan Wagner. Alan is joined in the lead by Andrew Brown, both shooting 9 under par opening rounds here at Camden 2. Brad Schick solidly in a tie for third at 8 under par. And finally, reigning Masters World Champion Joe Rovere, 8 under par, and we are ready to go. Hole number 1 here at Camden 2. Over the first of 2 ravines that this course plays around and across, a par 3 at 325 feet. Like so many holes here at Camden 2, the initial goal is making the first gap and then trying to shape the shot into either the landing area or the green.
This is the 11 a.m. tee time, our lead card. First on the tee at 9 under par is Alan Wagner.
Alan looking for that disc to skip up the hill.
Teeing second, also at 9 under par, is Andrew Brown.
Andrew Brown gets over on that just a little bit, ricochets across the fairway.
Teeing third, 1 stroke back at 8 under par, is Brad Schick.
And you notice everybody commenting good shot.
And also at 8 under par, Joe Rovere.
Good shot for making that initial gap. And then we take what we get up by the green. Joe Rovere with the long drive of the group. They're looking at Andrew, I believe, there in the thicket. Not able to advance very much, so now Andrew already throwing 3 here at the first. Well judged. Soft little run there from Brad. Now over to Alan. He's got a pretty good look here. Off the cage there from about 45 or 50 feet. And now Joe Rovere, closest to the pin, but also quite obstructed. Everything but the bottom of the basket there for Joe. So a series of tap outs, and we're off and running here in round number 2. All 4 rounds of this U.S. Masters Championship played here at the same course, Camden 2, here in the Quad Cities area of Iowa and Illinois. Hole number 2, a 225-foot par 3. Looking at this formation here in the middle of the fairway. Letting you know that's about 75 feet short of the basket. A couple of routes to choose from, sort of a hyzer route and then more of a straight-on route. Of note, though, the drop-off beyond the basket, more significant than it appears from this slightly overhead drone angle. And Alan Wagner will retain the box. Pretty well judged there, but you can see the skip carrying him just a few feet further than you might have expected beyond the basket. Now Brad off the formation there in the middle of the fairway. Joe needed a little bit more height there, so he'll be stuck next to Brad. And Andrew showing us the other route and doing so to perfection inside the circle. Try to get that putt to fall this time. Pretty good run there from Joe. Now Alan for the birdie. A little bit high. Bit of courtesy there, asking if he can go ahead and just get on out of everybody's way. Oh, and Andrew. That opportunity goes wanting. Andrew will have to settle for a par here, and he'll remain one throw over par thus far in his second round. We find ourselves at the third, a 363-foot par 3. Once again, narrow gaps, a couple to choose from, directly in front of the tee, and then a sweeping fairway from left to right, with then a left-hand finish. Relatively flat this third hole compared to many of the holes here at Camden 2. We're actually sort of along the ridge between the two ravines that I mentioned earlier. And Alan will throw first, looking to shape a flexing backhand around to the right and then finishing back to the left. So far, this looks pretty good. And that's the understatement so far of the round. Alan in the shadow of the basket. Now Brad Schick. this will stable up, he'll be better than he thinks, and I think he probably is. Yeah, good solid look there inside the circle. A lot of turn on that for Joe. Needs a stable finish. Not going to get it. Looking at probably par at best from over there on the right-hand side. Almost looked like a roller out of Andrew's hand, but no, just a very overstable disc and thrown to perfection. So Joe will be the first to try to advance up near the basket. Pretty good bid there, considering what Joe had to work with. And now 3 opportunities for birdie, starting with Andrew Brown. There we go. Back to even on the day is Mr. Brown. Second birdie of the day for the grouping to Brad Schick. Now Joe to save a par. Pretty good there. Allen makes it a 3 for 4 card here at the third. Now to the daunting fourth. This hole at 500 feet, a par 3. Playing across the ravine to a landing area somewhere around here. Players can try to shape something and get a little bit further up the fairway, though the green pretty close to inaccessible and steeply sloping from left to right. Most players genuinely playing this hole for par. We're going to see Allen try to discern what his strategy is. Here, first to go. Lots of shape on that disc. And up there in the canopy somewhere, hitting some branches and straight down into the creek. Little sidearm from Brad, a little more advancement, but also down in the creek. That creek is in bounds. Andrew, a little bit more traditional and conservative there, straight across to a pretty broad landing zone. Now Joe kind of splitting the difference. Basically in the same landing zone, but he'll have a shorter upshot. So Andrew playing first. Pretty decent alley here to work with. To the ground just a little bit early, but will have an open look to save that par, and that's just about all you can ask for here at the fourth. Now Allen will be blind most likely to the basket, may be able to see a portion of the very top from here, but most likely trying to envision a landing zone. Yeah, definitely blind from the basket that far back. And given that, pretty well executed. Joe now throwing. Just needs this to land softly. Pretty good. Heading down to Brad now, and being that close to this overgrowth in front of him will almost certainly be blind to the basket. Pretty favorable kick right there. And everybody with a puncher's chance at saving the par here. This is the most challenging one from Andrew Brown. Nope. No shame in taking a bogey here at the fourth. It's one of a couple of holes here at Camden, too, where there's really no shame in taking the bogey. You're not losing strokes to the field. The fourth played 3/4 of a stroke over par for the field. Nary a birdie on the day given up here at the fourth. And the fifth is a par 4, one of just 2 par 4s here at Camden 2, at least in this configuration. 550 feet. You're playing to this landing zone, give or take here. 230 from the pin next to that downed log, and then one of only a couple of OB stretches on the entire property comes into play, all the way up the right side here to a basket tucked no more than 2 paces from the OB.
Stay clean. Come on.
Well, it didn't stay clean, but it stayed clean enough to give Allen what should be an excellent view for perhaps even a long jump putt. Brad Schick wanting this to flex back out. Catches a tree, but it may have deflected into a pretty wide area. Not too bad. Joe doesn't like it. He may be okay right there. No matter what, a left finishing second shot pretty much necessary unless you end up where Allen is. And even this disc drifting over there a little bit. Maybe far enough to be pretty unobstructed. Brad playing first. The basket up there in the shadows. And that disc, unfortunately, deflects straight down. He's out of bounds just by a matter of a couple of feet. Joe playing next. Has a little bit of an alleyway, or is going to try to go around the outside here to the right. And that is very, very well done. Nice simple up there from Allen, and yes, Andrew far enough to be relatively unobstructed here. Ooh, squeaks through. Don't think he was aiming for that gap, but everything's just fine. Big time up and down there from Joe, and he's on the board with his first birdie of the day.
I'll be like 25 feet in front of where you were, but same shot, yeah.
Matching birdie there for Andrew Brown. Brad, unfortunately, with the bogey after the out-of-bounds stroke.
He's way out of position. Like,
he's gonna have to force it though.
I don't think he can.
Think it's even possible?
It's in the impossible range.
The way Worlds ended last year, you couldn't have wrote that in a book.
After the initial reaction, I had to process.
If you don't even think it's a sport, watching this moment has to get you pumped up.
He's going to need the shot of the century.
I could sense something was about to happen.
Welcome to the sixth, the 350-foot par 3 that more or less parallels the fifth. As a matter of fact, the basket there at the fifth is off to our right here as we fly over the sixth. Once again, a downed log providing a pretty good aiming point for the players. And this green relatively flat compared to most here at Camden too. Alan has yet to give up the box and will play first. Pretty similar shot shape to what we saw back at the third, and Alan. Pretty similar result as well. A lot of turn there for Joe, and a late tree. A little bit of wind here on the top at Camden can sometimes mess with the players. Might have turned that disc over a little early for Mr. Brown, and now Brad needs to thank that tree when he walks by. Stellar kick there. So Andrew now off to the left, and the rough here in most places at Camden, not a pleasant place to be. He'll have some work to do to save the par here. Joe. Lofting bid there, straight on line, just a little bit low. Now Andrew this is for par. Close, but doesn't draw any medal on that one. So now Andrew needing to putt again. Brad in, making up for the bogey at the last. Andrew showing just how quickly this court can bite you. This course is notorious for jumping out at you here and there with double bogeys, even when you don't truly feel like you played the hole that poorly, but a couple of missed putts, and that's what can happen. We ventured down the hill to the bottom of the ravine to play the seventh, the 250-foot par 3, going straight back up the other side. You can choose to try to go right here through the uprights, or you can really go around either side if that's what you're comfortable with. Either way, if you get your distance right and the shape of your shot right, you're likely to sort of play into the hillside and have the disc sort of die and settle right there, unless, of course, you get an unlucky turn up onto its edge. Either way, looking for some discs to finish well inside the circle, starting with that one from Alan. And Brad catching one of the uprights. And even though that disc was offline, had he missed that tree, probably would have had a circle's edge look at worst. Flashing the basket there is Joe Rovere, now Andrew Brown. And that one's pretty well judged right there from Andrew Brown, looking to get a stroke back from that double bogey at the last. Little upshot from Brad Schick. Now Joe, this is for a birdie. Two birdies in a row. Looking for one more here from Alan Wagner. Still hunting that elusive star frame amongst this foursome, but once again we go 3 for 4. Once again, we are up on top. A 500-foot par 3 here at the 8th. Very, very difficult to birdie. Pretty good alleyway all the way up to about this point, and then it gets pretty gnarly. Just really this one alleyway here. Otherwise, you're picking and choosing your route through those smaller trees to get up to the basket. And once again, with the box, Alan Wagner. Pretty good result there, really. We'll have an open stance and should be able to choose a line from there. Joe keeping things a little bit lower, looking for that late skip, instead catches a late tree. Andrew, a little bit straighter flight there than Joe's, catches also a tree. And finally Brad, back over to the right-hand side, needs this to swing. Pretty good result there. Curious to see exactly what kind of look he'll have. Andrew Brown playing first. Not quite able to match that flight up with one of those alleyways, so he'll have some work to do to save the par. Now Allen. Unfortunately squares up that one tree, otherwise would have been up there with at least a decent look. Now Joe having to stretch out, but you can see the alleyway he's got to work with. If he can just manage to shape the shot right up that little notch. Oh, wow. Pretty good speed and height on that one. Brad showing you some of the many dangers here at Camden. Poison ivy, stinging nettles, hitchhikers, thorns, the occasional creature. And Brad is up with a great chance at saving the par. No birdies on the day here at the 8th. The 8th played about a half a stroke over par for the field. It looks like Allen will drop his first shot of the day. Andrew Brown just a little low. That'll be a dropped shot there. So Brad picking up strokes by virtue of that par. So is Joe Rovere.
Chris Tatar looking confident early. That is now 8 straight birdies.
Chris has nothing to lose.
Tatar from the circle's edge for birdie. Punctuation mark on a dominant week in Emporia. Chris Tatar, for the first time since 2004, a European champion at the Worlds.
And just like that, we're back near where we started this round, playing in a different direction. This is the 9th 250-foot par 3. This tee pad very close to the tee pad for hole number 1. Playing over this sort of up and down fairway to a basket perched just over the top of this mound with a very steep drop-off beyond. A lot of ace runs here at the 9th. But also a lot of very tricky comeback putts and even third putts. So proceed with caution, Mr. Rovere. A little bit conservative there and a little too much turn. Joe will have a delicate upshot.
Gotta go.
Brad asking that to go, but it's really not too bad. Looks to be circle's edge at worst. Pretty well measured there for Allen, right to the top of that little hill. And now Andrew Brown. And that disc, the weight perfectly measured right off the bottom of the koozie there. You see what Joe now has to work with. You see the topography probably more aggressive than you may have initially thought here at the 9th. Bold putt from Brad. You can see the drop-off beyond the basket. Now Allen from a similar angle. And Allen pays the price. We'll have to wait and see just how far that went down the hill. Shouldn't have to wait long, though. Pretty fortunate. Didn't go too far. A lot of grass here, even given the canopy at Camden 2. And Andrew, that'll do well to help sort of right the ship here on an up and down opening 9 of round number 2. Alan Wagner opening up just a little bit of a gap over his closest competitors. We'll get a quick look now at the overall scorecard where Dutch Napier playing on another card. Lightning so far. 6 down through 9 holes. That's saying something. More importantly, that's doing something here at Camden 2. So we'll be back with you a bit later on with continuing coverage of this card's second round here at the 2022 Tim Selinske U.S. Masters Disc Golf Championship. So make sure you keep everything tuned in right here to the PDGA on YouTube, and you won't miss a second of the action.